looking good. My professional,
There you go.
I'm on his, actually, school counselor. You can tell me I'm looking good. That's
Teacher.
I know you're right on it.
Or running out of state.
Yeah, we're counting minutes for
Right.
that to be over.
Well, and I've had family in town.
Yeah.
So I would drive to work, probably drive to Denton,
Yeah.
and then drive back home to Dallas. So it's been a long week.
Oh, I have one good left. Do your laundry or you'll die alone.
I'll give,
My brother, whom I'm caregiver for,
Thank you so much.
if I had said take a shower and tile and I'd have been like, this is a little too personal. You want me to take a shower? Okay. Right.
If you haven't signed in yet for this session, you'll want to go ahead and get that done before we get started in about 1 minute. Everybody signed in? Yeah.
Please get out.
We've got 15 seconds.
It's the work there. Right, right. Of course. Oh, nice. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Did I turn off the TV? It's not for this.
I love that.
So we'll-
Yeah. I love, you did a great job. Thanks there. That's awesome.
That's about as far as I
Everybody's
can.
right. Yeah.
Nice.
I love it.
I still have like to, if you're.
All the way.
Okay, it is time. We will go ahead and get started. So, last session of the day. Before we do that, let's do a quick check-in. How many of you would like to stay for networking after this visit? I saw the name, I'm like this.
I love all of you and I know. Traffic is the deal.
Yeah, okay, 100% online, okay, on board with you.
Yes.
On board with you, okay, all right, so this will be our last, session. I think we do have some cookies and candy and a few water bottles across the way over there, if any of you want to avail yourselves of that on your way out. Then we'll have some tea left over at the end. If nobody takes that, I will. I am a big tea drinker.
Can I ask what the next work is look like? What is it like?
What the next
No, the next work is.
networking?
Yes.
Well, we've talked about a couple of different things. We've talked about just hanging out over here and chatting or going across the way over there for drinks. So, yeah, what sounds good? Okay, there may be some adult beverages on your own tab. We have expired all of our funds for the budget for this year, so that would be on your own tab, but if you want to do that, that's fine. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Cedric Wood, PhD, LPC is our presenter for this one. egopathy to emotional, did I say that correctly?
Egopathy.
Egopathy to emotional intelligence, preventing school shootings. And I did kind of go through a little bit on that. It looked like there might be some transactional analysis in there,
Yes.
maybe. Okay, so I don't know a lot about that, so it'll be some new information. Okay, thank you, Cedric.
Thank you. Welcome. How much work you have to do to put together every little thing
For sure. They don't give it to you.
on the last day of Radio Shack before they closed. They have
Oh.
50% off wind, and I bought threw it on a box, and I think it was yesterday. I went into that box. Look what I found. It wasn't even perfect, exactly what I need. And 100 other things. You're trying to get this camera going. I hope it continues working. But and I'm certainly putting together the PowerPoint. Been planning to say this since I walked in the door, so I might as well say it because y'all are the shining stars for being here. But I am very disappointed. There's not 30 or 40 people here. Not only here the other speakers that were very good, but to put in this kind of effort, and I'd like to think the importance of this.
Very important.
I mean, I really would rather not have 30 people. I'd rather have 3,000 people here. That's who I want to present to. So any of y'all have any ideas about how to get 100 or 200 people in front of me? Let me know.
Give them
TikTok.
money.
Yeah, right. TikTok is the idea.
Good morning, adult beverages.
Right.
But people watching online, can you tell?
One or two. So moving on. So I'm sure you all checked out my YouTube and watched all my videos on my YouTube channel. Thank you for that. I wish they were looked as professionals. Too bad I don't have a degree from UT in TV film production. I could really, oh, wait a minute. I do have a degree. You can't tell it by my videos. So get it going. The lights just perfect and the camera. But the words are all there. So I'm proud of that, and I hope to put this up on my YouTube channel. And so school shootings are just shocking to me, and I am confused. If anybody wants to teach me, I'm a student, tell me, why don't people in Texas care? I'll just stay with Texas for now. It just seems like that we are not doing an ounce, not very much, toward stopping school shootings and other shootings too. And every time, I'm a news hound. I don't know if y'all watch the news. Some people say, don't have time. Morning, noon, and night. What has happened? I can't wait to see it. It's so entertaining. But it's dismaying to see all the shootings. But what I've been thinking for almost a quarter of a century now, what can we do? I know, and you're going to learn today what we can do to stop them.
Awesome.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Now, I thought I would have this book right there, but it's over here. So that's the rundown. I think I've got about 3 hours of stuff here, so I better just move on, but it's basically what the literature, you'll see what it is. One, well, if you want to, you want to take on that responsibility. Pause for 3 seconds for the people that were killed 1 year ago at the Outlet Mall in Allen. Horrible, shocking, 8 beautiful people shot dead. What in the world was he thinking? We really don't know, because we don't really care about that. If we did, we would have interviewed mom and dad, all of his friends, his teachers from high school. What was going on with this kid? We didn't do it. I guess we don't care. I care, but where and when, how do I do that? I don't have the time. I work 7 days a week, not all day, but I stay pretty busy. 2 years ago was Uvalde, so kind of like April and May is the killing season. What are we going to do about it? That's my question for today. Go ahead. 25th of April, and this is one of like 3 shootings from the past 2 weeks. I just grabbed one, and this is the one where somebody actually was killed. An 18-year-old young man was killed. Atavion, shot dead. We haven't heard what his parents thought, what his friends thought, what his grandparents. I'm sure they're grieving. Why did you think that was a good idea? So we're gonna explore that question as we go on. And of course, we can't skip over talking about some of the past events. A little over 2 years ago, a kid walked into a high school and shot about 8 to 12 kids. 4 of them were killed. They died. Their life was over. His name was Ethan Crumley. It's funny, if your last name starts with a C, parents, don't name your son Ethan, because right here in Fort Worth of years, we had Ethan, what was it? Couch, Ethan Couch had the terrible experience. And so I'm always wondering, let's interview the parents. What happened to your child? And one in about 100 gets interviewed. They interviewed his parents when they chased them down and threw them in jail. Why were they different? Why are the Crumleys different from all other parents?
Because they'd been told what was wrong and they didn't do anything about it.
Exactly. They were called into the school that day, sit down, this is what your son is drawing. Don't you think we need to get him into a counselor?
No, they don't
Therapist?
listen.
Yeah, he's.
I'm gonna go back to work. He's fine, not a problem. They left. That's why they were thrown in jail. And yet in court the other day, she said, we're good parents. No, you weren't good parents.
Right.
But we have to kind of give them a break because we're not really assessing parents. So that's on our shoulders.
Mhm.
I mean, we assess people. I assess parents in my office when they show up, but we have to make that much broader. I'm not even going to go over what happened on March the 30th because it wasn't a young person. It was a grandmother. Talk about that. I want my grandkids to spend all their time with me. What can I do to make? I know, I'll kill their mother. That's the right idea.
What am I teaching my child?
It's just unthinkable. And of course, 2 years ago, Uvalde. Okay, Wilmer Hutchins, that just happened recently. Okay, what can we do about this? All the people in Texas ask, well, we need to get metal detectors.
No.
That'll catch the gun. Didn't the other day, but anyway, there were a few more working, so they've got the metal detectors working. We've got to start checking the clear plastic bags better. So they're gonna retrain the teachers on how to do it better. That's great.
Guns.
What?
The legislature says give the teachers guns.
I've already
Yeah.
tried that too. I've already tried shutting all the doors, locking all the doors and having supervised, monitored staff. I've done all that.
And it still hasn't worked perfectly. I'm not against any of that. I'm not gonna preach against that. I'm just gonna say, what can we do more? One reason is because all those things doesn't help a single one of those high school kids with their being stressed out. Not a single one of them are helped with feeling sad and alone in the world. Not a single one is helped with their depression or their attachment issues or their angst or their suicidal thoughts and their thoughts of killing. Not a single one of them are helped 1 ounce with a metal detector. Let's do something here. Go ahead. Okay, this is going to be kind of jumbled up. And I hope you'll be forgiving with this, but I read books. I've been reading books for decades. And one of them that I picked up was called The Psychology of Character Development. So these researchers were interested, how does character develop? And I would think that all adults, all counselors and psychologists would be curious, how does that happen? And so Peck and Havikhurst, they came up with 5 different personality types. And I actually have to read what I wrote. And so this is sort of where I'm going with this. So just go ahead and go to the next one. Well, let's cut to the some of the counseling journals that I was required to look at, to be able to get approved by TCA. It's like, well, we don't see any counseling journals in here. But all these books and all my creations. So that's fine. I learned 57% of the respondents reported a balanced justice approach to punishing juveniles with a mental illness who plan a mass shooting. what's interesting about this is we're learning a new phrase, you know, as we go through life, we learn new words and balanced justice. I'm going to have to try to remember that. That is versus a harsh punishment. So I think we'd all be in favor of that. I thought that was interesting. Versus the one that wanted to actually punish them for planning it. And then just went through the statistics of the adult offenders. 56% respondents reported, again, the balanced justice for those. And then 65% supported punishing them. And that's right from yesterday, from your TCA multi-briefs. I hope you all read your multi-briefs. It's full of great articles every time they send that to us from TCA. Okay, next one. This, I found this at the bottom of the article. Mental illness is not a factor in most school shootings. I could spend an hour on this. And because I've read article to article, I've heard speaker after speaker, including the president of the American Psychiatric Association 2 years ago, that being interviewed by CBS, The Morning Show, one of the points they made was, you know, these kids aren't mentally ill. And what they're referring to is the research that says it's about 10 or 11% of them are mentally ill. But if you read the article, they always throw in there serious mental illness. So what's the difference there? And it's important to know that. I logged on to a webinar the other day of a psychiatrist talking about shootings, etc. And he was saying the same thing. They're not seriously mentally ill. Okay, and so I wrote in the little chat. Okay, we know they're not perfectly healthy and they're not seriously mentally ill. What's this mysterious middle ground? What do we call them? And his answer, I wish I could just play it for you. But the key thing that he said, after sort of humming and hawing, he says, we have to stay within our lane. So what I took from that is psychiatrists are focused on people who are diagnosable with a mental illness. And since these kids aren't diagnosable, we don't really know what to do about them. Well, I don't know. And they just focus on how few of them are serious mental illness, with the flavor of the talking through the articles and interviews is, we don't want to shame people who are diagnosed with mental illness and have people ostracize them because they might bring a gun to the office or something. Well, that's a noble goal to have. Yes.
So I think, you know, how do we define serious mental illness? I think if we look at Metro Care's big three, they call it severe and persistent mental illness is going to be major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. Those are the only things that fit in there.
Yeah.
But most of these problems you're talking about, legal problems, substance abuse, alcohol use, those fall into like your conduct disorder and your antisocial personality disorder. They're still mental illnesses, but they don't fall into that big three.
Right.
And they might not be something that can be treated with medication.
So the psychiatrists aren't interested. And that's mind blowing. You think that the mental health professional would be always interested. I'm really kind of proud of this Dr. Paul Applebaum, because again, he says that the data suggests that other difficulties are the problem. They're not seriously mentally ill, just other problems. Okay, so how are we going to address these other problems? Let's go on with the conversation. Like you said, the legal problems, alcohol abuse, difficulty with coping with life events, and useful foci for prevention and policy, then an emphasis on serious mental illness. Yeah, so let's stop worrying about that so much and just get on board with the fact that they're struggling with something. They're not happy. Go ahead. So this is the book, Psychology of Character Development. So let me just go into a little bit, because what's the purpose of the whole book? They were trying to discover, where does their personality or their character come from? And they discovered through all the people they interviewed and their families that there were 5 levels. And we don't have time to go into the worst one, which is amoral. That's kind of explains itself. The other three were this middling area of not really knowing how to behave well. The fifth one is the rational altruism. These were good kids. These kids would never get a gun. They know what's right and wrong, and they don't do right and wrong like the conforming ones that just do it because this is what I've been told. I can't do that because I've been told not to do that. Well, that's not totally wrong. But what we want kids is to grow up with an inner sense of how do I judge if this is right or wrong? You know, if I do this, it's going to hurt some people. So that's probably wrong. They can think it through, and that's the rational altruism. The question is, where did their ability to have that thinking process come from? Well, they analyzed all these kids, families, and guess what? There was a high correlation between families that scored high on healthy interaction or healthy household behaviors and high character.
Surprise, surprise.
Gee, isn't that surprising? So of course, you'll learn the takeaway from that as we go through it. So this, how they mapped it out. So you can see it. This is what's in the book. In the top are the rational altruistic. Let's go for that. Go ahead. Okay, and they also talked about these traits here, kind of a psychogenesis of character. And I'm not going to go through them, but they rated the kids' super ego strength. You know, we all learned about Freud's super ego, but what do you think they mean in here? Super ego. What's your super ego?
Your conscience, the conscience.
Very good. That's exactly it. I am aware of what's right and wrong, and I'm going to do the right thing. Kind of like I always do the little devil over here, the little angel over here. I'm going to go party tonight. No, you've got a test in the morning. No, it's not going to be a hard test. I'm going to go drink. Now, that's not right. Some Japan Airlines pilot partied the other day. He had a flight the next day back to Japan at 1 o'clock. He was so drunk from partying all night, they had to cancel the flight because they couldn't find any other pilot. All those people that were ready to go on their vacation, see their friends, had to stay home because he had to go party. He did not have super ego strength. Ego strength is similar, but it's mostly just, I know who I am and I know, how I need to handle the situation, and I'm going to handle it well, considering everybody involved. And I'm not going to break down in moral stability and et cetera. Now, this is something I made up, and I'm kind of continuing to use it in my thinking. Y'all tell me if you like it or not. But I just had to think one day, what's one way to capture someone's overall being a good person? What are the five? And I always come up with 5 things. How about integrity, maturity, adult ego state, which is what you're going to learn in a minute, character, and emotional intelligence. So I thought, does that spell a word? Well, that's what I came up with. How's your IMACE? It's fun. I'm doing fine. So why did you do this when that was so hurtful? Well, you have to so your IMACE just gets pushed aside because of some personal agenda. I've been reading the book for 2 years, Flourish. I picked it up. I wish I'd picked it up in 2011 when what's that?
Love Martin Seligman.
Isn't he great? So much of the first part of the book is developing a class in teaching kids how to be mentally healthy, and his key word is well-being. So I've been learning from it. I could talk for an hour on that alone. And then there's flow. Y'all heard the previous Andrea?
Andrea.
Yeah, say flow. I was going to challenge her. What book does that come from? Flow. That's the name of the book. Flow. And who wrote it many years ago?
The highly consistent.
I didn't know how to say it. So when I met him at a conference, I said, how did you say your name? He said, Csikszentmihalyi. I said, okay, now I know how to say it. I think it's Mihaly, Csikszentmihalyi. And so I'll just call him Chick for sure. Examine the tendency in humans to seek what feels good. We think of this flow, and that's true, that's what he meant, you know, just being in a state of mind where everything else is pushed aside and I'm just focusing and I'm just getting it done beautifully. I hope you all have a state of flow. But as I read the book the other day, he gave examples where I went, well, he's just talking about just, you know, feeling good, doing something that makes you feel good. He was talking about the ancient cave dwellers were painting, they were in flow, and the people that were watching him, you know, the cave dwellers doing a big oxen, you know, were in it too. And I thought, gotta make an acronym. Is that an acronym? I just always think, what do you think the acronym for FLO? I said, I'm not gonna be able to think of a W. Feeling lots of
Warmth.
warmth is good. How about well-being? He uses it as if the word means feeling lots of well-being. So I hope you have that today. And we seek that out. That's a basic drive. So yet another professional I found who's talking about having a basic drive to feel good. And you probably already read that. Okay, go ahead. I have to mention Peter Langman. I read his 2 books, and they're totally about school shooters. The first one, he covered the 10 that had made the big headlines, Columbine, etc. And before you know it, there were 30 or 40 more. So he had to go into the background of it. I don't know how people do that. Would y'all have time to go in and just research and read and read? I don't know what he read. He found out everything about those kids' life. And so it was fascinating to find out what went on. My only disappointment is he never really added a chapter at the end of the book that says, now this is how we keep other kids from experiencing these things. But you know, so many things you just can't control, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about it. You know, mom and dad were divorced, and then mom moved over here, and then she lost her job. So they were living in a little tiny cold apartment, and then this kid had to go live over here, and it was just chaos. And then he ended up being a school shooter. And so I'm not saying it's easy to just have a stable life and a stable family, but we can try a little bit by teaching 15-year-olds, this is good to be stable with this person, with these children, with this job as much as you can. And I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm bragging, but it's just, you know, what mental health I have is based on the fact that the kids that I went to kindergarten with, I walked across the stage, graduated from high school. Same kid. How many kids can say they have that?
I also think it's more than just teaching, telling our kids what to do. It's more living it.
Showing.
Well, I
They
hope the
see
teachers,
how we interact.
Demonstrating it though.
Yes, in our behaviors, yes.
I hope the teachers of this class will do that. But,
I
you
think
know,
it's also community though, like what you were talking about, you started kindergarten, you went all the way up, like I grew up in a small town. Class of 35, right? I mean, I always used to tell people, if you messed up sometime during the day, mom knew about it before you got home. There was a lot of accountability. And there's a lot more empathy when you actually know that person. You know, you're gonna see them every day the rest of your life. You're going to see them at church come Sunday morning. You know, you're running into them everywhere all the time.
that good or bad?
That's good.
It's that community, it's that tribal attachment, right?
Yes, it's true. So anyway, okay, so Dr. Langman, he went over all those things. He said there were 3 types: the psychotic, the psychopathic, and the traumatized. I think we could almost put those into severe. And so he doesn't really lend a lot towards the discussion of people that don't fit into this and yet still ended up being a school shooter. So we have that discussion ahead of us. I had to just throw that in there. I was so interested to see the webinar by Dr. Pelosi and learn what ACEs really are. Interested in talking for 30 seconds about that, or do y'all know what ACEs are? Okay, and so that leads us to thinking about what kind of trauma, what kind of childhood experiences did they have? I don't think we're near curious enough. I'm sharing another one of my acronyms. I made it years ago. Again, I like to capture large things in a short little acronym. And so here it is. And I love going over this with the kids in the psychiatric hospital where I lead groups. Say, what do we need to protect you kids from? TRAU. Now, what does the T stand for? And it's a whole 45 to 50 minutes of discussing trauma, discussing rejection, discussing what unkind, unhealthy, inconsiderate communication sounds like. I gave a presentation about 2 years ago, and I asked the psychologist in the room, have y'all heard of mystification? So I'll ask y'all the same.
Absolutely.
Well, where did you hear about it?
Bob Beavers,
Well, where did he hear
family
it?
systems theory.
And where did he get it from?
Well, he developed the healthy family systems theory at Timberline Hospital.
And I'm reading his articles and his books these days. I'm just so upset with myself that 5, 10, 15 years ago, I didn't call him up and saying, can I come and just talk to you and interview you, Dr. Beavers? I
interned under him.
well, you're very lucky. I'd love to interview you about what you learned from him. But no, it was in a chapter by Dr. R.D. Lang,
Yes.
Mystification, and it's not one single mental health professional graduate student should go through school without learning it. It's so important for not only parent-child relationships, but for even the relationships with your significant other. You know, don't say something. And really, it's very similar to the double bind. So everybody studied that because it messes with your head. And the basic thing is, you know, let's go to granddad's house. Oh, I don't want to go. Well, you know, come on now. We always have fun. We need to get ready. We need to be there by a certain time. I don't want to go. What do you mean you don't want to go? I just don't feel good about it. Yes, you do. You always enjoy going to granddad's. Now get those shoes on and let's get out. Listen to what they're saying. Don't push your needs and telling them what they feel, what they think, what they're really hoping for. No, no, you don't want to be an artist. You want to be a lawyer. Yes, that's what you need to do. That's mystification. Okay, etc. Notice that word there. Okay, counseling journals. I needed to put it in there, so here we are. 46 million children are exposed to trauma. 46 million. How come we're not talking about this every day? We have 3 network channels on the TV paid for by the government. You know what they are? I never can remember. I wasn't planning on saying this. The 3 network channels from the government are what's the phrase? What is the phrase? It's the government. You see the government going on the channel. C-SPAN. And we have 3 of them. You know, one of them is just basic news, and another one is something specific, and a third one is history. When are we going to have C-SPAN channel for counseling, psychology, and family therapy? When are we going to get this information out to the people? Unbelievable. Well, I'm guessing that 90% is from, the trauma is from the parents or just something going on in the home. What can we do about it? Each parent must learn healthy parenting skills. Do y'all know what ARC is?
Yes.
Say it.
I mean, I'm familiar with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
adults relating to kids. And he 20 years, he's and I never can remember his name, but anyway, he asked me to be on the board of advisors. So I've been on that for a number of years now. And they do this group over here after school with these parents. And they are now pushing for to teaching the teachers. We were trying to get that bill through the legislature a couple of years ago. And I testified in front of the subcommittee, and all of them voted yes to go ahead and send it on to the floor. Pass on the floor, but at least they understood what we were saying, how important it is to teach teachers how to talk to kids. And I hope I don't get choked up, but there's one person who really grew a lot from her teacher. It made all the difference in the world. Who was that? Oprah Winfrey. Mrs. whatever Smith was the only person in her life that valued her and her needs and her opinion. She had her on the show and she started crying. It's really an amazing show. There was a teacher there that cared about her. And I get the kids in the hospital all the time. My teacher's so mean. She treats me this way and treats me. What are you doing being a teacher if you don't know how to say, how are you doing today? You know, are you struggling with your homework? Well, here, let me help you. What's going on? That, I'm sure that 90% have that attitude. But maybe there's 10% that need a little training on how to talk to the children to help them feel respected, and maybe can't use the word love, but you know what I mean.
Cared for.
Cared about. Very good. Here we go. Almost all the attackers have experienced or received some major loss. And what's the L in Trouncil stand for? Loss. That is a huge thing in children's lives. It's huge to have something and then to lose it. Ethan Crumley, before he went and shot those kids, what happened to him? His best friend moved away. His dog had recently died. Where were his mom and dad who said, son, I am so sorry that you have these two losses in your life. Let's spend some time together. But they didn't. So we know what happened. Experienced some kind of loss. In most cases, students' recent behaviors indicated they are not coping well with the loss. Only a small percentage of attackers have a mental health diagnosis. Back to that, you know, mental health diagnosis, 17%. So the rest of them are fine. Well, what's his name? I always blank. I don't know why. But he calls the one from ARC, the one that started ARC 20 years ago, says in articles that he writes, they're emotionally ill. They're not mentally ill. Okay, fine. So what are they going to call them? At least we can say they're emotionally not well. They're having a hard time dealing with these things. Moreover, small percent of attackers have a mental health, and 78% have attempted. Now they're not mentally ill, but they've attempted suicide.
What the heck?
Not that big a deal. Or considered suicide prior to attack. 61 have been doctored in history of feeling depressed and desperate, but not bad enough to have a serious mental illness. So I just want to say to all those professionals, get off of that not seriously mentally ill. There's millions that are suffering. What are we going to do about it? Next one. Promoting personal social development of students is what they were saying we should do in that article. A lack of clarity on the roles and responsibilities of school counselors. Do we have school counselors here? None.
Juan is, but he's not here.
That's right. A lack of clarity, school counselors and school violence prevention has hampered the efficacy, the effectiveness of the preventative efforts we've tried to do. We're not embracing and training the school counselors. Although school counselors' roles and responsibilities already align very well with school violence prevention efforts. Evidence-based intentionality is lacking. We're not really focused on having, say, training. I'm sure they would be not very excited to have more training. But, you know, they need training and programs to get the school counselors on board with integrating with, you know, school shooting prevention efforts. And so since we haven't done that, past 2 or 3 weeks, school shooting, just in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, go ahead.
Separate,
Yes.
a couple of other factors. One is, you know, I recall, not some few years back, we had a jumper on the House 5, and he was planning to kill himself.
Yeah.
Right. But there is a saying that it can quickly switch just like that from suicide to homicide, and he did end up killing one of the officers there. So there's that factor that harm, that intent to harm can quickly switch from that towards self to others,
Yes.
right?
Right.
And then another one is a nurse practitioner friend of mine was talking about with adolescents, you know, the brain is not fully developed. And that sometimes there's just like this boom, misfire, maybe they're going along and they're doing fine, and then just boom, something happens, and maybe you didn't see that happening up to that, and then it's just boom, And I mean, how many times have I heard, even personally and professionally, people saying, nobody knew, and the next thing you know, they're dead. You know, so I mean, I think there are some other factors there as well as the personality development. Personality development is definitely huge, especially with this school shooting stuff, but I think that there's some other factors there too, that factor into
No,
that.
that's not really a factor. That's just a thing that can happen, that you can't see what's going on. But so I'm not, you know, there were things going on underneath the quietness or the smile or something like that.
Yeah,
I
but they're
think
silently suffering.
they're silently suffering. And so the question is, how do we find the ones that are suffering? Well, I think any class in high school, about half of them, at least, are suffering. Let's just assume that.
Mhm.
You know, stop, you know, the president of American Psychiatric go, we can't really tell, we can't really predict who's gonna do it. We don't have to. Get your head straight. Just do what we need to do with all of the kids. And can we have to finish about following? Oh, here we are, Maslow. He's my guy. I learned about the hierarchy of needs. I thought it was pretty cool. You all learned about that. And I won't go into that, but he's basically saying, hey, intrinsic education. I don't think I'll use that term, but I think he was meaning education of the character and feeling good, not just trigonometry. Why can't we find, after 50 years, create a course that helps young people learn to be good and have high character human beings? Let's work towards that. Next slide. Here it is. I think it would have 4 different parts: healthy personality and ego development. What does that mean? I mean, I could talk for an hour on ego development, healthy personality development, how it happens, how it goes wrong. Next is relationships are so important. And a big part of that is communicating well. And number 3, healthy parenting. That's, I would shoehorn that part into the class. I say to my kids, now, you are going to be having 3 or 4 kids in a few years, and sometimes they laugh, and I'm not going to have any, or, you know, not for a long time, but, you know, some of them are 16 or 17 years old. And, you know, some people who are 17, 18 have children. So yes, you need to be thinking about this. You need to be reading a parenting book or 2. There, it'd be in there. And of course, healthy lifestyles. And by that, I mean, stop with the bullying. Anybody, anytime, anywhere, don't do it. Don't drink, don't use drugs, drive impaired, and of course, don't force sexual activity on another person. Guess I'll throw this in there. They almost kept what's his name from the Supreme Court. And whether he did it or whether or not, I would have liked for him to at some point said, well, I just want everybody to know I'm totally against a young man getting a girl drunk and having sex with her. He should have stood up strongly against that, whether he did it or not, and said it was just, oh, I wasn't there, I didn't do it, it wasn't me. Well, okay, it wasn't you. But what do you have to say about some people who did do that? I think they should have said, okay, we're gonna let you become a Supreme Court judge, but you have to go out and give 50 speeches a year to high schools across America. And he should have said, I'll do it. What else? And of course, you can read that on there. Go ahead. Now we get to egopathy. I thought I was being smart one day. I said, we've got to give this personality style, it's so mean and so selfish and egocentric a name. And I thought, I'm going to call it egopathy. And my dear cousin was an inspiration of that. He's more like a brother than a cousin. I've stayed with him 1,000 times. We had all the Christmas together, our families, but he's a flaming egopath. He just thinks about himself and his point of view. But he's had a happy life and everything's gone just fine. No. His son, as of this June, I think, has not talked to him in 5 years. Years ago, his wife left and wouldn't let anybody know where she was so that he couldn't find her. His brother's wife, his sister, on and off with talking to him. How does that happen? I don't know. So intelligent, and when he's in a good mood, so much fun. And if somebody needed it, he would give the person the shirt off his back. Wonderful person. But you get into certain situations here and there, then, you know, you're just an idiot for thinking this way or that way. And that's being egopathic. So we would teach this to the kids. don't be this. And also it gives us a word, I think it's kind of funny sitting there in graduate school and we're going over the personality disorders. And who has those? Well, all those people out there. They have personality disorders. We're going to learn about their diagnosis. But what about you and me? How do we do in our relationships? There was a woman who became president of APA. I kind of got to know her. And she remembered me walking by her. She said, "Hi, Cedric. I'm Susan something." Anyway, I got to know her in one of the breakout sessions. And she and other psychology professors were all so upset with the chair of the department. They had to get on antidepressant medication. They were having anxiety attacks. They were having to get therapy. So finally, the word got up to the higher level of the university, and they got rid of it. Well, how could somebody become a psychologist and rise to the head of the department and be a flaming egopath?
That's the ones that do.
That's what it's doing.
I hope that there's a few
Cedric,
department heads that,
what's the difference between an egopath and a narcissist?
well, almost not very much.
Okay.
And then so sometimes I just go, it's about the same thing. I think a narcissist, you think of somebody who says, I'm the best there is, I'm a local singer and my band is the best. Well, I like this band. No, that band's terrible. We play that kind of music much better than other people. I'm narcissistic, but an egopath won't be that, but they will be self-focused. So when you try to have a conversation with them, they'll a lot of times quickly just put down your ideas. It's not that I'm better than you. So it's very similar, but it's not, it lacks the hubris of how wonderful I am. It's just when you get into the relationship, it's like, we need to do this. No, I don't want to do that. Let's just do this one. Yeah, but if we go and do that, then I've got to, that's hard on me in this and this and this way. I don't care. I want to go over here. So it's this very self-focused, self-driven attitude. Now, you all know what emotional intelligence is. Hope you've read the book. It's by Daniel Goleman. It's brilliant. I always teach, when I teach this, I say there's 5 aspects of emotional intelligence: knowing what you feel, understanding what you feel, being able to manage what you feel, being able to communicate what you feel, and caring about the other person's feelings. That's the gist of the whole book. And so we need to have that discussion with a class full of 15 or 16-year-olds. Are you emotionally intelligent? And discuss. And after that, an hour of that discussion, their EQ has just been raised a notch because they've discussed it. Go ahead. Okay. Well, there's another one that will. Anyway, I'll just go with this. This is my 4 quadrants of poor parenting. DCA allowed me to present this about a year and a half ago, I think, to a room full of people. I was very happy to see that. And I have all these boards in my office, and every once in a while, somebody at the end of the session says, "I like the fact that you have those boards. I'm a visual learner." A lot of people don't want to just talk. You got to do this, they want to see it. How do I become a good parent? Don't do any of these things. This is gleaned from my memory of reading so many parenting books, parent-child relationship research. That's where I got it. And it really occurred to me. I'll never forget the day I was going off for a job, and it just occurred to me, too much structure, angry and controlling, too little structure, just the opposite. And then there's too much love over here, giving, involved, doing, helicopter parenting, and then very little. I mean, it's a perfect dichotomy. If anybody wants to say brilliant, it's okay. Go ahead. But it's so, in a way, you can almost say it's obvious, and yet no one else has ever thought of it. It's always just words, and the research article and the parenting book, and it's all brilliant. I've soaked it up. But but sometimes it needs to be put into a graph. Do I need to go over it specifically? It's the harsh, controlling, don't do that, don't be mean. And I had to put chaos and mystification in there somewhere, and it didn't really fit anyplace else, so I kind of rounded out the A box. Opposite of that is the C box, where lacking instruction, no rules, no routine, no holding a child accountable for their behavior. The Ethan Couch that was drunk as a teenager and got his friends in the car and was driving. He was living in a house by himself at the age of 16 because of his filthy rich parents. Just said, well, go live in that other house. We don't even want you around. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So there was no structure, and he ended up killing, drunk driving 4 innocent people on the side of the road that he ran into. Just awful. And of course, negligent parenting would be put in there. The B is too much love. And that's what one SWPA, I'm sorry, I hope you all don't mind that I'm involved in psychology. The Southwest Psychological Association convention I finally attended last year. And they had some students there presenting the research. And one of the students presented the research on helicopter parenting. Great. And of course, the kids that got that turned out not as good as the kids that didn't get helicopter parenting. So that's proof that that kind of parenting isn't good. Well, that fits right in here. This over, you could call it too much love, too much concern. And certainly number 4, the sexual acts with a child, wrong, wrong, wrong. Don't do that. They need to be told that. I mean, I guess we're not saying that to 14, 15, 16, 17 year olds. Or, I mean, we got it in church, but if you don't go to church, then where do you learn that?
Right.
And the opposite of that, what's that?
Some churches are not saying that either.
Oh, well, you're right. I mean, it's
Well, those are the same churches that sexually abuse the kids too.
I've heard that a few times in the past year or two. One was down in Mexico. Well, my mother couldn't take care of me, so the preacher of the local church, might not have been Mexico, might have been some other country. And so she went there to live with this wonderful Christian man who began abusing her sexually for the next 5 or 6, 7 years. What could she say? Where could she go? The person was. And so, and more stories. It's just unbelievable. So the D box is kind of handy because all the words start off with a D. Divorce, sometimes people just shouldn't be together, but what is that going to do to the kids? Certainly having a disease, you can't help that, but you go to the doctor, you're never there, you're not there. So that's hard on them. Certainly dying, that's hard on them. Don't I have one, isn't there a D word that means going into jail? What is that? Don't I have it on there somewhere? Oh,
Detention.
Huh? Yeah. And so, try not to commit crime and be sent off to prison for the next 10 years. I have a story, but I won't take time to do that. I didn't put on my watch. What time is it?
You still have another hour.
Yeah, you got
You're on at 2 hours.
Yeah, very good, very good. And I always mention Tangled. I gave it 4 stars out of 4. I used to write the movie review for White Rock Lake Weekly. So I went to see that and I said, that was just excellent, couldn't have been better. And there was the evil mother who was very distant and controlling and mystification. And it was a perfect example of how not to be. I think she was a stepmom, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Wasn't a good caregiver. And so that's number 4 there. Cold, disinterested parenting. But there's also one I had to kind of shoehorn in there right here. And that is, and I'll tell you the story. A young man, married with a baby, came in, and I don't know how y'all feel, but I just, a whole lot of tattoos, just, I don't know, tell me something. And one of them, when you look closely, was a skull from a distance, but when you look closely, it was 7 naked women like this, put together, that from a distance just looked like a skull. Who would get that put on his arm? But he did. And he was having problems with his wife.
No kidding.
And so he was coming to see me. And he was talking about how he'd been sexually abused by this person and then sexually abused by that person. And his parents were divorced. I said, did you tell your mom? Oh, she was remarried and busy with all the other kids. I didn't want to bother her. And though he would go and visit with his dad. And I said, did you tell your dad? And he said, no, he never asked. But the dad, apart from that, was a loving, kind, our weekend son, come spend time with me. They had a great time, but he just never had a heart-centered, person-focused talk full of caring and concern about how are you doing. He never leaned into his son's point of view. And so that didn't help. If he'd done it, he probably would have turned out better. It so happened that his father lived nearby. I said, let's get your father in here. So we got the father in there. He's about 80 years old or something by this time. I said, it's time for you to talk. No empty chair, a chair with his father sitting in it. And he told his father what had happened. And his father was such a good guy. He said, I am so sorry, son. I did not know that was going on. I'm so sorry. I hope that helped heal his heart a little. Good deal. So that's the why I put D1 in there. That's that. Next one. Oh, wow. This was so cool to come up with about 3 weeks ago. It's a way of kind of a test on how are you doing? And y'all can take this test. Now, if you put down that you're a 1, a 1, a 1, a 1, and a 1, that means you're a saint. Wow, the Catholic Church will be calling. We want to Saint Francis. That's because you're perfect. We're not saints. But where do we kind of slip up? Where do we need a little bit of help? The whole reason I did this was to really figure out, because I was reading about, I was trying to remember her name, Andrea Yates, Houston, who'd she drown?
Her children.
5 little boys. She drowned them all within a few minutes. Unbelievable. So I was reading about the psychiatrist giving her antipsychotic medication and then took her off the antipsychotic medication. And the husband was doing this and was telling her, you're fine, you're a wonderful mother, don't worry about it. She was saying, I'm a terrible mother. No, you're not. Mystification. No, you're not. You're feeling, you're fine. Instead of really leaning in and listening. And I started thinking, with reading all this, how can I summarize all these stories about where this behavior came from? Well, the first one's pretty easy. It's a lot of the school shooters and other people have struggled with being happy. They're even depressed. And so I would love for some teenage kids to give themselves the score. I care about you and how depressed you are. Are you a 3? Are you a 5? Do you think you're a 7? I don't know why I stopped at 9. I don't know why. It just felt better. It felt right to me. And so you can talk. What I like about assessing this is you're not just saying, are you depressed? You're not depressed? Okay. So are you, that's too easy.
Yes.
Give me a number. Well, I'm a 1. So you're perfectly happy. Fantastic. Yep. Weren't you yelling at someone the other day because you were so, well, they made me angry. Okay, maybe you could give yourself just a 2 on this. And the point is, you're discussing these personality psychological traits rather than just teaching what depression is. Okay, turn the page. Now we're going to go, what is anxiety? You're interacting with the kids if you use this, or with your clients. So I've given it to a few of my clients. Now, Andrea Yates, they were saying she was like hallucinating, having some psychosis. Peter Langman, the psychologist, that was one of the 3 things was actually psychotic. He said that one of the 2 Columbine shooters was a little psychotic. So he was like a 3 or 4 or 5 in there somewhere. Why couldn't somebody have talked to him about that? Did you ever hear his mother speak? She came and spoke here in Dallas a few years ago. I'm so impressed with her. I'm so proud of her. because she said, I'm one of those parents that didn't do a good job. This is what happened. And she told the story of the kid was being bullied at school, and he came home and he had looked like blood all over him. And she said, what is that? And because she thought it might be blood. And he says, there's nothing. Well, it turned out to be red paint, but it was still bullying. And he went to his room and he shoved the door, closed the door. And she said, well, you know, good parenting is allowing your kids to have their space. Don't try to get into their space. Yes, but there's a time when you have to get into their space with red stuff thrown at you from the bullies at school. She says, I regret that so much. Just saying, okay, not gonna ask. So involved parenting where you really care. I write the monthly newsletter for Park. And one of them, like February, was kind of talking about leaning into the story of your child. They have stories to tell.
Yeah.
You know, well, I asked my son the other day how he was doing. He said, fine. So you know, I went to work. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about really sitting down and having conversations with them. And if they refuse, I don't, y'all tell me if this, you think it would work. Say, let's go get a hamburger, put them in your car and drive 70 miles and just sit there until he opens. Just capturing. He has a story to tell. Talk to him and listen.
Sorry, do you think do you think the reason why most parents fail, it could be because they don't know the signs, the things to look out for when their child is being bullied? And do you think that might be one of the biggest reasons?
That's part of it. Yeah, they don't know
They don't know
or they don't care.
I want to think that they do care, they just don't know what to do. Even if they saw something, they might not know what to do with it.
Well, yeah, so parenting is a skill. John Bradshaw says it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Does anybody here know who John Bradshaw? Thank you. The rest of you's got 4 incredible books you have to go read. Healing the Shame That Binds You, John Bradshaw on the Family, etc.
Okay.
Brilliant, and he said it's the most difficult job. So if it's so difficult, then let's learn about it. I tell my clients, everyone.
I'm just gonna say, I had a kid who was bullied and I didn't learn about it until after they graduated high school and had a mental breakdown like senior year. And that's whenever I first found out about it. And it's like, you know, I'm like a hawk, I'm a helicopter parent, okay?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I knew there was something wrong, which turned out to be autism and depression and anxiety, but I didn't know about bullying.
Same, my son is 32 this year. This is the year I found out that he was horribly bullied from elementary school to high school.
You kind of wonder, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah, and I remember asking, what's wrong? Why do you not want to go to school? What's going on? You know, nothing, it's fine, it's fine. None of the teachers ever said anything. I would ask,
They
what's
don't
going
tell.
on?
And then my youngest one comes up 4 years later and the teachers are telling her about what happened. And I'm like, why didn't they tell me?
Yeah.
No, and it's not like I wasn't in communication with teachers all the time, the helicopter parent, but yeah.
Okay, so number 3, here we are with egopathy. And it really is just being self-centered, sees everything from my own point of view, scoffs at the other person's wishes and needs. And you know, the whole mystification thing. No, what you're feeling is not right. No, that's not true. I had one young lady in my group at Green Oaks. I'm sorry, I was at Presbyterian, and you know, like 20 or something like that. And I'm going over something, and she said, well, mystification. And she said, my father is in the PhD program up at this university. I think it was Texas A&M Commerce, a PhD in psychology. He was working on his PhD in psychology. But before I came into the hospital, I was telling him I was really feeling bad. I was kind of depressed. And he told me, you're too young to know what you feel. You're not depressed.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, having a PhD in psychology doesn't make you mentally well.
No. True statement.
Unbelievable. You know, I mean, I would love to do the full semester version of this for every psychology student, every marriage and family therapy student, counseling. I'd love to go over these things. You know, where do you fall? Oh, I'm a 1. So you never think about yourself in any situation where you always think about the other person. And so they're kind of being egocentric as they give themselves a 1. You know, it's like the next one is criminal, because a lot of the shooters do have a history of criminal acts. A lot of them don't, just out of the blue, but that could be something that you could talk about. Swedish young lady, 15, you know, oh, she was interacting with this younger, kind of mentally maybe young patient the other day, just doing a perfect job. I mean, it's like, where did you go to school? Wow. I mean, knew how just to support her and be supportive. And we were saying kind of the same things to her, you know. And then the other day I went over this and she gave herself like a 4 or 5 on criminality. She's stealing, she's lying, you know, other things, whatever she's doing, but she admitted to it. Right there on the list. Now, the last one, Robert Hare, the big psychologist, wrote the book Without Conscience, because that's what a psychopath is, lacks a conscience. So he's been working on that since the late 60s. I think he's up in his, getting close to 90 now, but that's his thing. And I think the way this has to work is there's no 1, 2, 3, 4 of that scale over there. If you're up there, then that means you're high here. That means you're an egopath. You're just full of yourself. So you're high here. But as you get worse, at some point you jump over and you become a 6, 7, or 8 on psychopathy as you start abusing people or killing people or something like that. But, you know, what we study, it's not like this is your femur and it's broken. Your diagnosis is a broken, you know, doctors have it easier than us. You know, we're dealing with fluid concepts that you don't know.
Intersectionality and all kinds of things. Yeah.
Right. And so what
And 1 means you have little of that.
Right.
Up to 9. Okay.
Right. I think I'm gonna end up flipping that the other way and putting the 9s at the top.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood that was for every problem.
Yeah, every month.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And so you could actually do this and kind of give yourself a score. And in the class I'm proposing, you know, you would discuss your score. Give yourself will be 9 times 5, you know, a 33. Oh, that's a high score. What did you, you know, it should be this fluid learning. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, you were saying on it and I didn't know if you wanted to flip.
That's okay. So you see my trouncil here. I came up with this one day as I was thinking about aggressive people. What are the details? What goes on before the person gets aggressive? Tell me what you think of this. And I have to say at this juncture, I wish that we could get together once a month and just discuss our ideas and what the media should be doing, what the school district should be doing. There's no one to discuss this with. I'll be honest with you. I went to see a psychologist for therapy. Just wanted to have somebody to discuss these things with. God, and she couldn't do it. She just went to the medical model. Well, I think you have ADHD. You need to go see a psychiatrist. I just wanted to talk to some ideas, you know, you can't do it.
Really, I'm not ruminating. It's interesting.
That's right. She was kind of a friend of mine, but anyway, I realized that they go through these 5 steps. And then I realized one day that there's really 2 pre-steps. People, a lot of us have to admit, you know, we're not at a 1. We have some anger in us. We have some resentment about things we carry around with us. So we have to be aware of that. And so the first 2 letters are AR, I mean like AR-15. Is that where that comes from? So it's really Arera. That's the, you know, first when somebody, before someone gets aggressive, they're very arrogant in the sense that they're self-focused. They're focused on what they want, they need, and they lose the emotional intelligence of caring about the other person's feelings at the school, at the mall, who might be dead in a couple of hours if I continue going without what I'm thinking and feeling. So it's this arrogance and egocentrism of I'm going to do what I want to do. And then it's this righteous indignation. I have this offended pride by how I was treated in junior high and how I was treated, you know, at Uvalde. What age kids did he go in there and kill? Elementary school kids.
Helpless.
And why was that, do we think? Because when he was in elementary school, he was bullied by kids that age. And he carried that anger and resentment ever since then. Sandy Hook, same things, kids. Because back when I was a little kid, these other kids were mean to me. And so I'm gonna get them back. And so that's that righteous indignation, my offended pride. And indignation is, how dare you treat me this way? I'm gonna get you back. Revenge, retribution. And so
Arrested development at the age of the trauma.
that too. Yeah, we have that arrested development.
Arrested emotional development.
Yeah, so we tend to go back to that very early age of development when we're angry and unhappy. And then we get aggressive. And so those are the boom, 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 boom. What do you think of that? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And the way their parents showed their power was smacking them around, showing aggression and not listening to them or reasoning with them.
That's right. That's right. And they think, well, you've got to teach them right. You got to make them walk the line and tell them, yeah. Okay. Now, this is my conflict model. Wow. Do we have time?
Yeah, we got a little bit less than an hour,
Okay, a little bit less than an hour.
50 minutes.
Fantastic. I came up with this like over 20 years ago. And I've shown it to many of my clients, not all of them, but I show it to them because it's such a simple thing. And yes, I think I might have gotten the basic idea of author that I studied in graduate school, and I'm trying to think of his name, and I can't, but in there he talked about the A person and then the B person, and the A person then responds to the B person. I can show you that place in the book. So that must have planted a seed. And then years later, I said, okay, the A person. I also remember seeing in a textbook that conflict begins, somebody gets angry, said. No, that's not right. Conflict begins when somebody does something innocent. Where have you been? Well, I went to the store. Why did you go to the store?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? We needed some food, and then I went by the dry cleaners. I got my suit, I got your dress. You know what? I told you to be here at 6:30 so we could get to the movie at 7 o'clock. It really begins here with somebody doing something that's just me taking care of myself. But it goes through a filter. What's the filter? Childhood trauma. It was brilliant. Gosh, what was it? NBC about over 20 years ago, they had 5 couples on the morning show. I taped them. It was brilliant. And one couple, they were older, probably around my age, and they got into a big fight. They were on NBC, the morning show, and he wasn't coming home. So she was waiting and waiting for him to come home. And the food got cold, and she threw it in the refrigerator and went to bed. And he got home like, where are you? What went wrong? And so on the show, she said, it reminded me of when I was a girl with my siblings and daddy was not coming home and our mother wouldn't let us eat. So we were waiting and waiting for daddy. Where is he? We're starving. And that you not coming home after me fixing you a lovely meal reminded me of that.
That's a trigger.
That's a trigger. And it's located right in here. It becomes the filter. So you do something innocent, but I don't feel like it is. And then I respond with words and attitude and physical, actions that are very hurtful. Now, it might go through the A person's filter. He has his personality too, his or her. And they could respond with just as much anger and ferocity. And off you go into the huge conflict. And it's funny, I have couples, so I'm sure you do too. We had a big fight last Thursday. Really, what was it about?
You don't remember.
Or no idea.
Yeah.
You get so angry, you can't even remember it 4 days later. But it starts off kind of innocent, and then it builds. And so good couples counseling is, can you just check and see if that camera's still going? Can you just look at the little window there? Is it still on?
It does not look like it's still on.
Okay. Well, let me just.
Yeah. I'm glad you had me check.
Yeah. this is what tends to happen. And I don't know if it's because the SD card is full or because somehow it just stops
There was a noise just before.
just before.
I heard that sound a while ago.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I didn't, thought one was somebody.
Before she left, there was a weird noise. I thought it was over here, but it must have been that camera.
Well, I have another SD card, but I won't take
Card
it.
full, yeah.
I won't, so now I know I got my question answered. 64 megabytes last about an hour.
Yeah,
Now I know.
right about.
And so as we go over this, it brings up the idea, well, how should I have responded when he was so inconsiderate? He didn't mean to be considerate. He was just taking care of chores and taking care of you. He went by and picked up your dress at the dry cleaner. Well, I told him to be there no later than 6. And so then it becomes sort of about, and we all struggle with this, how do I take a deep breath and not get angry and just say, I'm feeling disappointed, call iMessages when you forget that I asked you to be here at 6:30. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you did. I'm sorry. And the more you can do this, and this is what I teach my couples, the healthy communication. And it's always interesting. It's fun for me. I had a couple in, was it last night or the night before? She was just crying, and he was in there. Yeah, you just kept calling my sister, asking me where I was. I was on my bachelor party. We didn't have any strippers. You know, he was just so disgusted. But she had attacked him over the past 3 or 4 days. So neither one of them was right and neither one of them was wrong, except in the fact that he had not really learned how to say, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. That had to be hard. That had to be not knowing where I was, not knowing that we were partying inappropriately. You know, he didn't know how to lean into her needs and her point of view. And that is just so important if you're going to fall. And we, you know, so here's 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds. I want them to know you have to lean into their point of view. You can't just say, well, I've had one, you know, I'm not going to have a woman do that. If she does that, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind. You know, he was going to set that boundary. Well, I wasn't surprised, but sure would hate to be the person that falls in love with him because, and since we're not teaching it, can we really blame the 16-year-olds, the 36-year-olds, or the 66-year-olds that come in to see us that don't do this? We've never taught them. When are we going to teach them? So this is how I make my living, teaching it. Love it, but my heart goes out to all the people that are suffering. I had one woman, she was pretty disheveled in the group at Green Oaks Hospital one day. You know, she's depressed. Yeah, I've been married twice before. And I said, well, how'd your couples counseling go before these 2 husbands? Oh, we never went. We're not getting the word out, comrades. There is something called therapy and couples counseling that will help.
I think because of COVID though, a lot more people know about us.
Good.
This is true. Younger generation too are really into it.
Since COVID.
There's still stigma, y'all.
Yeah, I know.
Stigma.
I know. But more people-
Especially not so much the younger generation themselves, or at least the ones that I'm seeing, obviously they're asking for it. But they have to deal with the pushback from their parents who are not open and think it means there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. In
Or they
certain
could
cultural
think there's something wrong
communities
because of
as
parents.
well. In certain
Yeah.
cultural or
My
religious
child,
communities
right.
as well have a pushback against therapy
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah, there's still a lot of stigma, unfortunately.
So
Yeah, but they see it as airing their dirty laundry. So
Yeah.
it's like this book laundry.
Yeah.
Airing the dirty laundry in public, so it should just be in the.
That's why, you went exactly where I was saying cultural,
Yeah.
yeah, there's cultural.
And I've got a handout of the whole thing. I didn't make any copies but one. So if anybody really wants one, we can go to the closest copy shop and make a copy. I was going to bring 10. I just didn't get to it. Okay. Now we get to transactional analysis.
Oh, goody.
I read, I'm okay, you're okay. when I was younger than everybody here. And I was a film major. I think I was living in Los Angeles trying to make it in the film industry. Or maybe it was in Austin, I don't know, but I read it and I thought, wow, this is amazing. So time goes on and I get a job after getting my master's at a psychiatric hospital, go lead a group. It's like, what am I gonna talk about? I know one thing that I could talk to you about to these kids. TA, I'll go over that. And so I go over it with just about every one of my couples. And I always struggle to say why. I'm going to struggle again. It's because I think it helps to embed what they're dealing with in something outside of themselves, into a model, into a way of being. So I don't sit there and say, Jack, the way you're talking to her, it's just not very nice. You need to say, talk to her with more empathy. And Susie, when he does that, maybe, and I'm just in my parent mode, which we have to go into from time to time, more on that next. But I would rather go over this so they can start seeing, where am I? And so I say the child ego state is just all of our feelings. And so at that moment, I'm kind of validating all of your feelings. The parent part of us is the part of me that observes what you're doing, and I don't like it. I'm hearing what you're saying. I don't like it, and I say something. And this is a test I give. I said, so if I were to say to you, no, you're putting the dishes in the dishwasher the wrong way. Look, let me show you. Why would you put this dish over here like that? Now, if I talk to you in that way, this is me, this is you. Where do I draw the arrow?
Critical parent.
You are very smart. I'm kind of surprised how often somebody says to the parent, to the child. But a lot of them will say to the child, and I'll say, and why? I ask it so I can say, why is that? To get their cogs going. What are we doing here? Because the parent voice stirs feelings like happiness and joy. Right?
That
Not the critical parent.
What kind of feeling?
sadness, embarrassment, anger, shame.
Fear.
Fear, frustration, all of
Rebellious.
Rebellious, yeah.
So in that moment, they connect in their mind. When I talk to you like this, don't do that, that's wrong. I'm stirring something inside of you. And those words are not positive words, hurt and shame and frustration. Now, this is not out of literature, but I always say there's rocket fuel in my child. And so if that gets stirred up, I might blast off into my parent voice.
Critical parent, not nurturing parent.
That's right. And so I might say back to you, I know how to put dishes in the dishwasher. I'm the one that has to do it all the time. Don't come in here and tell me. Now, where do I draw the arrow from my voice back to you?
Putting it back to the
Back
child.
down to
Yeah,
child.
back
To the child. And guess what? There's rocket fuel in your child too. And then what happens? They blast off in their counter parent. And then I say, what happens?
We're stuck in a loop.
So then you get into a power struggle.
Our struggle, what'd you say?
Stuck in a loop.
It's a loop. Some people say a cycle. Some people say infinity. I always just say, yes, that's it. And we've just mapped out every argument you've ever had. One board with 6 circles. I've mapped out every argument you've ever had.
I just wanted to say, this is also very helpful when you have now the adult child trying to understand their relationship with their parent.
Yes.
Because the parent is still wanting to talk to the little child and then having to learn how to have their emotional conversations, adults with adults.
Were you listening on my conversation with mom the other day?
No,
You're so right. You're so right. And so we have to learn that there's a third ego state. It's the adult ego state. What is that? I always say it's cool. You're being cool, calm, and collected. So anytime you find yourself getting upset, you're leaving the adult. You're no longer like an adult. Number two, it's curious, infinitely curious. And so, ask questions. You're 30 minutes late. Where have you been? Oh, I'm cool. And most people do that pretty well. The problem is when we hear the answer and we don't like it. And we get upset, we go up into our parent. But the third aspect of the adult is open to your response. This is the hardest thing to do, and yet every young person needs to be taught, stay calm. And I haven't ever done this yet, but I'm going to be hopefully coming up with scenarios that you would hand out to the kids and say, read this. And so, okay, Diane, right? Read this to Jason over here. And it says something like, those shoes you've got on, wow. How should you respond, Jason? Huh?
Thanks.
Well, that would be one way, but he's not feeling very thankful. So the adult would say, so it seems like you're not seeing something about my shoes that you like. You're kind of seeing maybe something's kind of wrong with it.
Right.
I'm leaning into your point of view instead of my defensive. No, they're not. Who are you to say that? And going up into my parent. That is so hard to do.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe because he also might have a problem even wearing those shoes. He didn't even want to wear them. And then you're gonna say that to him.
Yeah, and so do I
That's a
defend
great
myself?
point. That's a great
Do I say-
point. I hadn't even thought of that scenario.
My mother made me wear them. I don't like them either. They might start a friendship based on that.
Well,
Hey.
also, I mean, if we're talking to adults, that this is hard just talking to adult clients, but trying to talk to 15, 16-year-old. I'm gonna call them kids. I'm sorry, y'all. They're still kids.
They are.
That don't have a prefrontal cortex fully developed.
Exactly.
Trying to ask them to zoom out of a situation like that and not let their, indignant child or adolescent parts take over, because I operate out of IFS. So this is
Yeah.
very,
What?
IFS.
internal family system.
Oh.
So this is,
There's the
bringing some-
self-energy in the middle.
yeah, exactly. And so thinking along those lines, to ask a 15 or 16-year-old to zoom out of that situation and become, leaning into someone else's point of view, that's asking a lot for a
Yeah.
15-year-old, 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, and so I think they should
A
practice.
lot.
They should be given the input, reading something and say, well, how are you going to respond? And of course, the teacher has to be trained not to go into their parent. And the
Mhm.
person says, well, that's a dumb thing to say. Okay, well, that's kind of a normal way to respond. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, everybody, where did Jason go? Did he go to his child or his parent? And then they become the therapist. They analyze it. What did he do? How did that work out? And in that moment, they're growing into being able to do it better. Yes.
You were talking about the openness part of that. I think that pairs well with the boundaries, respecting other people's separateness, that they have their own thoughts, feelings, wants, needs, that their no's are their no's, they're trying to meet their goals, etc. I think that pairs well.
Yeah, and I have struggled with what to call it, except just otherism, because the opposite of that is egocentrism. So we need to be more other-centric.
Yeah.
One writer was calling it, I was reading the other day, called it sociocentric. I don't know if I like that one. We need to have a word that means I care about your point of view, what you're feeling, what you're needing. And I can put what I want, what I need in my hurtness on hold.
I like the assertiveness word, because it says that my needs are equal to your needs and your needs are equal to mine. So I can look at both my needs and your needs as both being equal.
Well, they are
I like
equal.
assertiveness.
My needs don't diminish your needs and your
Right.
needs don't diminish my
Exactly.
needs. Yeah.
That's the one I like.
Okay, but that's a little bit different from what we're talking about, because I don't want you to be assertive in step one. I teach my clients step one, step two. Such a simple little thing, and yet it's how do you respond first? You don't be assertive. You don't think about it from your point of view. You
Right.
don't make your needs met. You let the other person know that they're getting their needs met. I hear you. That makes perfect sense. Maybe something like if we could be gone to the fair for the whole day, then maybe we could go to that booth, that exhibit, because that would be a lot of fun. Step one done. Step two. You know, you got a little brother, a little sister, and they're gonna be getting tired toward the day, and they really want to go to the animal things. And so then you let the older child know we have to think about other people's too. But I don't start there.
Right.
49 out of 50 parents start with, no, we're not gonna go to that. The little ones, they don't. Right there. It's almost mystification, but it's certainly almost
Yeah.
verbal abuse.
Yes.
But what about what I want to do? I mean, all you have to do is give the person 15 seconds of yes, that would be so fun. And I hope maybe if we go on another day, we can go and see that exhibit. However, now this is when assertiveness comes in. However, for the short time we have, we're just going to be there for 4 hours.
Right.
Kids, and you let your needs be known. Okay, where we at? Booyah! 9 ego states.
What?
9 ego states. I go over this with a lot of my couples. I'm looking for the day when one person that I've presented this to says, hey, Cedric, I used it with my couples and it really worked out well. So I want to hear from each and every one of them. So now this carefree child is in the literature. Critical parent and nurturing parent is in the literature. But I just wanted to add egopathic parent. That person goes beyond just being critical. They're going into being shaming and disregarding what you need. What what you're saying is just stupid. My cousin, I told you about him, talked to him about a year and a half ago on the phone. I don't want to hear that. What did he call it? That what's that phrase with the psychology is not a bunch of psychobabble. That's just psychobabble. I'm trying to help you connect with your son. No. His way was the right way. Okay. Don't talk to Zachary for the next 15 years. Fine. It's just amazing. This egopathic parent. And hopefully, as we talk about it, we become less and less egopathic, both us and our clients. Which one do you want me to go over? That's a 3. I was presenting it. I have to pat myself a little bit on the back at some things. I mean, I'm not rich. I don't live in a beautiful house. So it's like, okay, what have I done well? Well, I presented to the Transactional Analysis Society out in the Queen Mary at Long Beach a few years ago. Wow. And an author of a book called the OK something. What's his name? I never can remember. Well, no, he's beyond that. And joins. Oh, what's his name? Something joins. And he was in the audience. And I had his book, so I knew who he was. So I turned to him, I went over this. And I said, do we have the wounded child in TA? And he said, no, we don't. So that's strange because I'm a big John Bradshaw fan who was talked on PBS. I hope all of you have seen PBS and the John Bradshaw series. Please, I mean, it's just brilliant. I just can't believe PBS isn't showing it over and over again. I can't believe counseling graduate programs don't have a week or two. This is John Bradshaw week. And I'm going to be showing clips from the PBS. We're going to be discussing this book, Healing the Shame That Binds You, or John Bradshaw on the Family. Brilliant. Just brilliant. And so that was his key thing, was the wounded inner child. Well, that just fits right in with TA just so perfectly. When you do something, you either trigger or you create the wounded inner child. Don't do that. We don't want to walk around with a wounded inner child. Mom, dad, brother, sister, romantic partner. We don't want that pain, please. So, and this I came up with. It's the indulged, the egotistical, enabled, entitled, indignant child. In other words, they got their needs met too much. Back to that quadrant I held over here, too loving, too flexible, too giving. And that creates a sense of I deserve. I should get one up because I desire that, I deserve that, and I'm gonna get it.
Mhm.
Okay, but who's getting hurt in the process of getting that? I don't care. Well, you're going into a child state. Is that really where you want to be in these negotiations? Let's try to reach for the adult. The number 4 adult, it's the information seeking, information giving. I could talk more on that. I want the curious one. And that is when somebody, it's kind of what we were talking about a while ago, when somebody comes at you, try to go into your number 5 adult. Well, why is it that you don't like my shoes? Have you tried this method that I do that you don't like? Okay, you've never tried it. Okay, well, I'm curious. Do you want to learn this method? Maybe, who knows, maybe you might like it. That's my magnanimous, open, mature adult seeking a win-win solution. And then the super nurturing adult is when somebody's just going off on you. Have you ever had anybody that just went off on you?
Mhm.
Well, I have. Wow.
Yeah.
You have to go somewhere. Not there, not that. So that super adult just, okay, and try to help them relax, calm down. And if they can't, then you just have to just walk away, not aggressively. I had that on the Aurora, that aggressive withdrawal is also aggressive. That's the person who says, I'm not going to listen to this. And they walk out the door. Well, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just you tried to talk to them. They're not coming down. You have to take care of yourself. Your heart is breaking. You have to just walk away. I don't like hanging up the phone, so I've learned to just set the phone down and walk away. It's worked so far. And thank goodness I haven't had to do it in a few years. Yes. And so that's the super adult, just being able, and also part of it is just really being able to care about somebody that you find it hard to care about. That's a super adult. You can go and you can care about somebody that you don't really like, or you wouldn't naturally make friends with, but they're hurting for whatever reason, and just being a saint, being a magnanimous person. Questions before we move on?
What's the rest of number 2? We can't see the last part of that sentence. When paired with number 3, it becomes a potent precursor. To...
When compared with number 3, paired with this one up here, that's this. It becomes a potent, aggressive, and really I might have said compared when paired with like 8 and 9. So it's almost like there's 2 ego states, almost the adult and the CP, because no one ever gets parent angry, aggressive without their child being triggered.
Right.
I was thinking the other day, y'all have all seen that guy. He's got the gun, and it's from 1842, and he's got the gun, and I think maybe he's got the Bible, and he's got the big long beard, and it looks like he's preaching. He's so angry preaching. He's got this Bible. And I looked at that and said, that man is not just preaching. He's expressing a deep woundedness from childhood. That's where that anger comes from. Unresolved anger from the past. Paired, comes up and energized it. And I even read I think it was Eric Byrne, that's who came up with it. Eric Byrne, and then Thomas Harris wrote, I'm okay, you're okay. They took it to the next level. But it said something about, he used the word contaminated. The child contaminated the parent. I went, there it is. Because I was thinking that already. Are you in your adult or are you in your CP? You're a contaminated parent, contaminated by the child. I wish I could teach this to every citizen in Texas. Thank you for letting me teach it to you. I hope you'll let me know how it goes in your practice when you use it with your clients. Next. Wow, I don't think what time, how much time?
35.
How much?
25 minutes. 25.
25. Well, that's enough time. There's your CP. And I don't know, are you interested enough for me to go into this? I tried to present it to the K-Head. It's not called that anymore. Texas Association of Humanistic and Development. It's a division of TCA. Liesel, actually, she is a professor at, was so gracious enough to let me present it. But I feel like it just fell flat, partly because I was on Zoom. being in person is so much better. So let me just see if I can help you understand it. But it starts off with somebody with that innocent, think of the conflict model, the A person, he's innocent, and does something or says something that's innocent. That's where it begins, right there. Right. And so it goes through the filter of the B person. And then and I used to have 9 circles over there, 9 circles, and they're triggered. They do a CP response. And I threw this in here, is that somewhere in their brain before they hit you or shoot you, they ask themselves, is this right? But a half a second later, they said, yeah, that's right. This is fine. This is what I should do. And so that's just so arrogant that I can get my angry needs met by shooting you. That's what happened the other day. 18-year-old kid, go to high school. Now he's gone. Now, what do y'all think of my OK Green Jay? It sounds silly, but I was trying to think of an acronym that's like, what I'm doing is fine. It's okay. And I kept coming up with more words. What I do is good. What I'm doing here is right. You know, I'm beating this kid up. This is right. It's excusable. He deserved it. So it's necessary because he deserved it. So I'm justified.
That's exactly what they heard from their own parents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That I'm hitting you, I'm hurting me more than you, and it's because of what you did.
Yeah.
So my hitting you really way too hard is
Could
justified.
be more than it did you.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's the righteous indignation. So I'm glad I've already gone over the ARERA with you. And then there's this judgmental retributional. I'm going to get you, and then I get aggressive and I get you back. So it's combining my conflict model, the ARERA, and the TA all in one diagram.
Mhm.
Is there a reason for the J? Okay, green J, it should.
Justified.
What I'm doing is right there. No, that's judgmental. Yeah, over there, justify. And so since that's true, then I don't have to apologize since I wasn't in the wrong. So you shouldn't have done what you did.
The punishment core belief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and we won't even talk about
So
that.
once
If
they got,
Should be punished for what they do wrong.
they do something wrong, you deserve that.
so once they've gotten to this place, they're 18, 19, 20 years old.
What do we do?
What do we do with that?
Well, there's 2 answers. Never give up hope, stay in your adult, and always be open and ready to talk things through and to talk gently to them.
Yes.
Compliment them and validate them in any way you can. That's step 1. Step 1 is music to their ears. You know, it makes so perfect sense. He's in June, you know, that you threw that at your father and then you beat up your little brother. That makes perfect sense. I love that phrase. It makes perfect sense. And sometimes when I get this going on in my couples, I'll say that makes perfect sense. That's logical. Pause. But it's not functional.
Thank you.
It's not
not
functional.
effective.
Or not helpful.
Not
Yeah.
helpful to create a healthy relationship. And I really surprise them when I say, I need you to be selfish. I need you to think about yourself. What do you want? Now, what do you want? Do you want a healthy and happy relationship? Well, think about that.
Or do you want to be right?
There you go.
What do you need to do to get what you want? There's things you have to do differently to get the healthy and happy relationship that you're dreaming of. And that you're kind of angry because you don't have it. Okay, what do you need to do different to get what you want? And so it kind of works. It kind of works for me. You know, how do I want where I live in my relationship to be tomorrow? I want it to be calm and happy. I loved hearing her say this morning, I love you. She was saying yesterday, but I stayed in my adult and I got what I wanted. I got a good relationship today before I came here.
Very good.
You see, but I had to do a lot of adult thinking and stuff like that. Okay, next one.
Oh, I have a question on
Yes.
that. So let's say you've got a person who is angry, but it's about the world or America or the political system or society or how people, it's like about a passion about injustice, social injustice. So what do you do with that?
Well, what would step one be? Something that would make them go, she understands wrong.
Yeah,
What would you say?
validate.
Validate, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And like my client yesterday, got a lot of it from me, and so I think that really helped him. But that was just step one, that was just the beginning, to say, you know, I get where you're coming from, and this is a problem. You know, we're going to step two, which is what can he do differently to deal with with his wife. That's the hard part. But back to the question, they're angry about the world. You go, the question is, do you disagree with it? That's the hard part.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So that's pretty good if you've got somebody that you kind of see eye to eye and you're kind of, the problem is what if you totally disagree with it? Wow. Oh,
That's when you have to lean in.
you leaned into what?
Being open and being curious.
Being curious, leaning into their point of view.
Well, I can see how
What
you
comes
feel that way.
next?
Yes, exactly.
What comes next with that?
Well,
You're open, you're validating,
you may,
all those, but then what comes next?
Yeah.
Because I mean,
well, you may not be able to get to step two. In other words, a happy relationship sometimes is you, because you're in your mature adult, just letting go of what you would love to be able to get to convince them to think or do. And so you may never get to, now, of course, only you can decide if it gets so bad, I've got to get out of this relationship.
yeah, now I'm talking about a personal relationship. I'm talking about as a therapist,
Yeah.
I have a patient whose chief complaint is just their ongoing anger and frustration about social injustice in the world, about I mean, they're in the genius range of intelligence, and it just blows their mind that people can be so stupid.
Yes, I hear you. You're so right.
Okay, so what do you do with that? Yes, I get that. But I mean, obviously it's causing him some distress, but not that he wants to change who he is. I mean, like, that's just kind of
So
what
what
do
can
you
you
do
do
with
about it?
that?
So I would ask him, what can you do about it? What do you
Well,
want to do about it?
It depends on their goal for therapy, and I would even check in, like, okay, let's check in on what we're doing here. You've come 5 times, and are we achieving our goal? And you know what Zig Ziglar said? Nobody remembers Zig Ziglar. You've got to have goals. He's right. You've got ideal. And I heard one speaker, I think it was APA, talking about setting goals. And I'm not good at that at all, but it's smart to have goals. So you check in, what's our goal for being here? And if he says, just so I can vent to you about my anger, okay, well, I guess I get an A+. I guess that's a check mark there. You're getting your
Venting is
need
not
back.
therapy.
So,
Venting is not therapeutic, in and of itself.
well, it's potentially therapeutic, but not right away, maybe.
Right.
And you never know when it becomes therapeutic. Ideally, in an ideal world, after 10 times, he leans and says, you know what, I'm tired.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's
what would
right.
you like?
Mhm.
My father. Okay, tell me about your father. What was he like? Social injustice. Oh, wrong question. So, but the point is that you get to where a therapeutic place, so maybe venting is therapy for them, but you have to check in and say, is this working for you? Are you feeling better? You know, coming and doing this, and if they say, yeah, then I don't know, I would just go with it. I wouldn't fire them.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about what is effective, like what role can you play in making change in the world, accepting the limits, and then doing your part as an activist, but doing your part in a way that's effective, that people will hear you.
So give that a try. You're going into your,
That's him or her.
you're going into your
How does it
nurturing.
feel to be doing this?
You're going into your nurturing parent there, so just kind of be aware of that. It could trigger the child response. Something like, well, I don't like that idea. Okay. Tell me more about that. What is it about that idea don't you like? You have to say in your adult. And so of course that,
Got it.
yeah. Okay. Oh, so everybody knows what the IQ is? All the kids in the hospital know. Some of them know about EQ, some of them don't. So I get a good chance to go into talking about emotional intelligence. So they learn right there. I mean, I'm teaching the class I'm envisioning every weekend, the 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And then I go, but there's a new thing I just invented the other day. So that means this means nothing. I don't know. I'll let you decide if it means nothing. Self-awareness of your mental health quotient. How self-aware are you? You can be depressed and angry and impatient, frustrated, and get a high score on your SAMQ score. Why? Because you're aware of that. You're conscious of how you're struggling and you want to get better. You want to learn in this class things you can use to feel better and not be so angry at your mom or so angry at your little brother. If you can tell me that you, and I catch the kids as often as I can, what you just said there gave you a higher SAMQ score because they said something like, well, sometimes I get angry or I want to get better at doing such and such. I think your SAMQ score just went up like that because you're aware and you care about that. Does that make sense? I think I need to get that published. And okay. Oh my gosh. We're not gonna, how much time do we have?
12 minutes.
Okay. Well. Ta-da. And this is the most intellectual thing, but I do go over it with my clients sometimes to validate. If someone is saying, my teenager, he just does, this and that just to feel good. He's always sneaking off and using drugs or something like that. And so step one, say something that's music to the teenager's ears. Well, in my book, the basic human need is to feel good or feel better if you're feeling bad. It's a basic drive. And just reading about it in the book Flow the other day, I said, there it is again. He's just going on and on and on about people doing things that are basically to feel good. And several big theorists through the years have said that. So I don't think I'm out of whack there. And I came up with this next thing is to express myself. So if your child is not expressing what he or she is needing, wanting, feeling, then they're not getting a very important basic human need met. Next is to get things done. So that's more of your got to get up and get going. A lot of us aren't good at that. To have things go as they should. So if somebody says something like, well, I tried to go there and I tried to do this and get involved and tried out for the band and it didn't go well. About half of all parents would ignore that and say, well, things can't always go your way. You need to practice more. Maybe you make a band next time. The unspoken subtext is you're a big jerk and lazy. That's what they hear. You don't want your child or anybody else to hear that they're screwing up. So you say, well, you know what, to have things go like you want them to go is a basic human need. Of course you should have gotten it. Of course things should have gone as planned. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry they didn't go the way you wanted it to go. Validate, validate, validate. And of course, one of Maslow's is self-esteem. His number 4 basic human need is self-esteem and esteem from others. Now, some of his basic human needs, that's his number 1, and that's his number 3, I put on this box over here because we have these drives and then we reach out for these things. Are we getting our needs met? We need to ask these unhappy teenagers, are you getting your needs met? So many of them aren't. A man called my daughter, she's cutting. What should I do? Bring it, okay, I'll drop her off. No. You and your wife, come on in. And and so she was very well spoken, attractive and intelligent, like how could be what's going on here? But then towards the end, where am I going with this? Basically, she was not getting her needs met because mom had this kind of personality, should I say, egopathic personality. And toward the end, she said, honey, you can talk to me. You can come and talk to me. I thought, oh, that's really sweet. And her daughter said, yeah, but then you'll get angry. There it is. She's learned through the years, she's not getting her need met to be heard. And we had a little back and forth there with the mom. From a country way, way south of here, said, well, that's the way I grew up. That's the way we speak down there. That's, that's the way I do it. There's nothing wrong with that. And so when people say that, they're basically saying, therefore, you should have no problem.
Right.
I shouldn't have to change and you shouldn't have a problem with me.
Because what I'm doing is, okay, Green Jane.
Culturally, it was culturally okay.
Exactly. And so I don't know if they'll ever come back again, but I had to connect the dots. This is probably the reason she's cutting, because she doesn't feel like she can come and talk to you, mom,
Trying to get
and have you
attention.
just listen in your adult. She would go into critical directing parent. Well, what you got to do is, no, I told you not to do that.
Right.
And so she spilled the beans. You'll always get angry.
And then the worst thing, they cannot say why or why not, because I said so. So they're not even given reasons for why not to do. They're told not to do.
Right? Right? And so this is kind of basic parenting 101, Don't say, because I said so. Don't say that. Try to answer the question. So here's those things. And then if you can get these needs met, it leads to a sense of completion, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of success, achievement. That feels wonderful. Oh, that feeds right into what?
Self-esteem, feeling better.
Feeling good. Every parent, every romantic person should say, are you reaching out, getting your needs met, succeeding, and then feeling good from it? That's why I call it the rotary engine of life. We're just always in this constant hope that my job is going to work out well, and I enjoy it, and I get paid, and I get praise. I go in weekend after weekend. Finally, I texted my boss and said, you never say how I did. I mean, I bring the best stuff to these kids, and my bosses over the past 2 years have never said, gosh, Cedric, good job. What you bring to these kids is fantastic. So she wrote back and said, yeah, you're doing a good job. Okay, thanks. You have to ask for it,
Yeah.
Okay, do I have another one?
Oh, you got, yeah.
I heard the most wonderful webinar about a month ago, April the 11th. 9 elements of effective school community partnerships to address student mental health and overall wellness from Texas Education Association. Good for them. So I'm trying to find time to tell me more about that. And so one young man that was on there and talked, and I said, I've got to interview him. I finally found his number. I've called him Wednesday. I called him yesterday. Please have him call me back. Hasn't called me back yet. I don't know what to say. I hope that we'll all join pinkies and say, when somebody calls us, another professional, I will call them back.
No matter how busy my schedule is.
What's that?
No matter how busy my
No
schedule.
matter how busy. I told the person, man, just 5 minutes. I just want him to, I want to brag on what he's doing over there at the Garland Northside Elementary School. I'm going to brag on my presentations on Friday. Hasn't called me back. Don't get it. Promote. What comprehensive school mental health system is to promote positive school, teach and support skills for social, emotional, and behavioral health. When are we going to start it? Can we get a bill passed in 2025 that mandates a class in every high school, all 3,500 of them in the state of Texas, that does exactly that?
Yeah.
So
What are we waiting for? Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work at this. People are dying every day from some drunk driver just driving right through a stop sign. Beautiful couple in love, they're going to get married, both dead. Both dead. So, prevent mental health and substance abuse problems, intervene early to reduce, provide access to school base. Brilliant. Let's support it. Next. Well, that's real basic. I had, and I think y'all know that. Those are sort of a basic. And go to the next one. But these are my 10 pillars, and some of those are in here. I don't, do y'all have a sheet that y'all give out that something like says 8 or 10 or 12 pillars or techniques of good communication? I would love to compare my list to yours, but I've never had a professor, 200 graduate hours in psychology, counseling, and family therapy. Never had a single professor say, let's go over healthy communication. There was 1 hour in my PhD in family therapy where healthy communication and relationship was taught. I taught 1 hour the whole time. You know, you could pick out our topic. My topic was healthy communication. Does anybody have any questions about those? I've gone over this 10,000 times. And hopefully the couples are trying to learn to use these words and techniques. These are all in the adult ego state. Yes,
Will you be sharing the PowerPoint slides with us?
I can. I was going to make 10 copies. I've got the basic printout that anybody wants it. I can go and copy it wherever we can find the Xerox machine.
Email.
Well, I
Or-
mean, if we have the copy, then, you know, like I can just print screen for, or print that page, you know, to be able to pass that out. Because I mean, you've got your name on there, so you're giving us permission to share that.
Yeah.
With patients.
Sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll get that to you for sure.
Did you want me to stay there?
No, go on. This is getting too deep. I'll just say that this is the beginning of 3 or 4 more. I have 200 of these kind of things. There's no shortage of what I would cover in a class, in a high school. And this is just, let's talk about it. You know, how are you doing? You should be able to give a score on these moments of peaceful and pondering and early in the morning when it's private and quiet peacefulness. When do you have a moment of peace? How many parents are willing to say, tell me about a moment of deep peace that you feel? Just when did you feel it? Sometimes they say never. Oh, never feel a deep peacefulness. They might say something like, well, the other day I was driving and I felt real peaceful. Oh, good. I'm so glad you had that experience. There's a lot of 3 or 4 or 5 times over the years, I leave working all day on a Sunday. I was driving down 75 and I was just in nirvana. I just kept driving. Clouds are just so beautiful. Drove all the way to Ennis, Texas before I turned around. It's just like, oh. And it's like, I hope other people feel this. It's such a blessing to have that 30 minutes of peace. Go ahead. I tried to get the fuller one of this and I couldn't find it. So this is the closest one. Again, just discussing these things with high school kids helps them focus and also answer. Success in life depends on having a clear mind about what you want to do, where you want to go, and then feeling excited about it, you know, and then doing it and enjoying doing it. And that adds up to drive. You feel driven to get things done. So, you know, thousands of millions of people. I'm one of them that doesn't have a real good said. What is said? What? That's my nickname. How'd that happen? It just happened. I didn't try to do that. I had C, D, da, da, da. I said, no, that's the thinking. That's the doing. But there's in the middle, there's the feeling. And then that leads to being productive and you achieve and you have success. And that leads to Maslow's self-actualization. Good for you. Isn't that what you want in life? Well, I'm busy doing drugs and I'm busy hanging out with my buddies late at night. And okay, well, let's just kind of get an idea of where that's going to lead to. And so you don't chastise them for doing it. You present a model of where does that go? Where are you going with that? And a whole semester is needed. Next,
We're at time.
we're out of time and we're handing out the assessment. Thank you so much for your attention.
Have you ever written a book?
I have
What is it?
Emotional Intelligence and Egopathy. Why good people behave badly.
Oh.
Have I gotten it published? No, because I lack CED. I'm not driven to get it published. It's on my website.
It could be in school library.
It should be. If I could. So that's on my website, drcedricwood.com, right there. You just open it up for free. You just start reading. Yeah.
So just, thank you, Cedric, for that. That was a lot of information, a lot of which I did not know. So I learned some new things today. Thank you. Yeah, if we can get, if Jeff, did he get that to you, the PowerPoint? You could, email that to the participants. That would be greatly appreciated. So if any of you do want to do networking after, you know, that's great. I guess you can gather around with whoever wants to do that. And then also, this is our last official meeting of the year. Our leadership will be going to the June training in June. And then, we will be installing new officers July 1. I love it. I do appreciate everybody coming today, and please do stay plugged in for next year. And I'm sorry, you came in on our last meeting, just to let you know, I'm putting in a plug. We do have 3 vacancies for next year.
All three of you.
One is emerging leader and the other 2 are members at large. And they're both kind of they're all 3 kind of on deck positions for leadership for the following year. If you're interested, then please let me know. Okay, so please do stay tuned. I know Jeff will be our new president next year, and and Danae will be planning our continuing education for next year. And so I can't wait to see what they've got for us next year. Okay, I'm gonna be coming around, picking up your evaluations and printing you your certificate.
It's on Highway 75 between Meadow and Central. So the building is called Meadow Central, but it's closer to the high 5. Kind of close to 4.
It's nice to meet
It's
you.
nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's very happy. I hope it won't be the last time.
Yeah, I am.
Well, thank you for giving me a card.
So.